Hey everyone, today I just wanted to make a quick video going over the Legionary. In this video, we'll be covering what stats you should be looking for throughout the leveling process, what gear you should be looking for at different stages in the leveling process, as well as going over the abilities and the special abilities of the Legionary and how all that looks put together in combat situations. So first thing we're going to look at is the special ability. We can see here each time the Legionary hits a target with an attack, they gain 1% armor and 1% magic resistance for 10 seconds. This effect stacks up to 10 times. When the Legionary has 10 stacks, he converts 7.5% of armor and magic resistance into bonus attack power. So with that special ability in mind, that kind of informs what stats we're going to be looking for. As a tank and with the Legionary special abilities, we want to be looking at health, armor, and magic resist as our primary stats. And throughout the leveling process, as we get into our tier 2s and tier 3s, we can start looking at secondary stats like additional attack power or some extra mana in case you find yourself running out during extreme combat situations. Now, gearing up 1 through 10 is actually pretty straightforward. Your artifact choices are pretty limited as they're all single primary stat artifacts. So as a Legionary, you're going to be looking for armor plates, immunostimulating implants, and nanofiber. Once you hit 10 and you have tier 2s available to you, so 10 through 20, you want to be looking at the atomic breastplate, the steam cell implant, and the stealth cloak. But as mentioned before, once we hit tier 2s, we also get dual stat artifacts available to us. So if you're feeling comfortable with your build and you feel like you have enough health, armor, and magic resist, you can start looking at swapping in something like the modular glove, which is going to give you additional attack power and armor, or something like the cerebral interface, which will give you additional attack power and magic resistance. Once you make your way into tier 3s, you'll be looking for Invictus Plate, Sonic Cloak, and Plated Lungs. Once in tier 3s, you'll also have artifacts available to you with 3 primary stats, so if you are feeling confident with the amount of health, armor, or magic resistance you have, you can start looking at things like the Mage Breaker Plate, which will give you attack power, armor, and magic resistance. Or if you want to keep a nice healthy amount of armor and health still while adding a little bit of attack power, you can look at something like the V6 Heart, which will give you health, attack power, and armor. Like all classes, the Legionary has 4 abilities: a Q, a W, an E, and an R. Starting with the Q, we have the Shield Bash. The Legionary smashes an enemy in front of them with their shield, dealing physical damage. The strike knocks enemies back and makes them vulnerable. If the ability hits an enemy casting a spell, the ability is interrupted and goes on cooldown. The Shield Bash is actually the Legionary's bread and butter. It's great for creating space and breaking apart large groups of enemies, allowing you to focus down a single target. The next ability is the W, the Catapult. The Legionary throws the nearest ally or enemy to a target area. All enemies in that area take physical damage. The tossed enemy also takes damage and stuns all vulnerable enemies within the landing area. The tossed ally does not take damage. So as we can see with the Catapult, it combos well with the shield. As the shield applies vulnerable, we can launch an enemy into a group, stunning everyone in the radius. The next ability is the E, the Spear Throw. The Legionary readies and throws a spear in a target direction. The throw gains extra range and damage the longer the Legionary spends preparing to launch the spear. It deals physical damage to all enemies in its path. If the spear hits a vulnerable enemy, it taunts them, forcing the enemy to attack the Legionary for 2 seconds. So we can see here with the spear, it also combos with the shield, causing enemies to aggro you after you've hit them if vulnerable. This is a great group ability, which will pull enemies away from your teammates, giving them much needed breathing room. Finally, we have the R, the ultimate ability, which is Unstoppable. When activating Unstoppable, the Legionary removes all crowd control effects on themselves, and for 8 seconds they take reduced damage and gain bonus movement speed. The Legionary will also restore a portion of their health on enemy kill or assist. This ability is great in a group setting as it allows you to pull aggro to yourself from the mobs, giving your team much needed breathing room, and any additional damage you're taking is being reduced, and as you're killing enemies in the mob, you're also going to heal a lot of that damage back. So now that we've covered the basics of what the Legionary is and what they can do, I'll go over with what the combat should look like at different stages throughout your leveling process. When starting out for your first ability, I highly recommend taking the Shield Bash. That way you can kite the enemies into a group, break them apart, and focus on one, minimizing the damage you're taking, allowing you to stay out longer in fights, clearing camps, and minimizing the amount of resources you're going to be using. So what I'll do is I'll just kite all these rats and group them up together, and then I'll Shield Bash them. I'll isolate this one for a few attacks while the group comes to me, and then I'll break apart to minimize the damage I'm taking. I'll kite them around while my Shield Bash recharges, maybe get a few hits in every so often. And once the Shield Bash is up, you want to get them grouped back up again and hit them all. Focus on the weakest one. And you just want to make sure you're keeping your movement up, getting out of the attack range, because it's much better to tank a couple hits from one enemy than it is to tank 1 hit from 3 to 4 enemies. Once available, the second ability I recommend you take is the catapult. It combos really well with the shield. It's going to give you your stun, which will allow you to, again, minimize the damage you're taking while clearing these camps and allow you to get some extra hits in with your basic attacks. So once you have both abilities active, your combat will look something like this. You want to group everything up again, hit them with the shield, find the closest enemy, toss them into the group, and then while they're stunned, get a few licks in, and then make a swift retreat. So you're just going to kite them around while that combo recharges again. You want to kind of get a few hits in every so often just to ensure you're maintaining aggro. Something I've mentioned a couple times is kiting. If you're unfamiliar with that term, it's essentially what I'm doing now. You've pulled aggro on enemies and you're just kind of leading them around the arena. We want to make sure we don't get too far away from here, as it'll cause them to leash and de-aggro and heal. So we just want to make sure we're getting some hits in every so often. I think the Legionary is a really good class for beginners, as it's very tanky and its playstyle is reliant on kiting. So if you're unfamiliar, it'll teach you the concepts of kiting without punishing you too heavily for making mistakes while learning the process. And your third ability selection is going to be your only ability selection left, which is going to be the spear throw. So once you have the spear throw, your combat is going to look a little something like this. We'll group everybody up, hit them with the shield bash, stun them, get a few hits in, start a retreat, and then initiate the charge on the spear throw. Once they're all grouped together, you can hit them all with the spear in one go. And then we'll just keep them kited, going in for attacks on the weaker enemy when we can, and then finishing them off. So once you have your first 3 abilities, that's essentially how you'll combo them, especially when running solo. You'll bash with the Q to apply vulnerable, find an enemy, single them out, get a few hits in. Once the group closes in, catapult for a stun, get a few more hits, initiate retreat, and then initiate spear charge. As they follow you and you kite them, they should group together. That's when you initiate the actual spear throw to get as many as you can. For the final leg of the combat showcase here, and for talking about the unstoppable ability, I've switched over to my higher level Legionary. That way we can also talk about your universal abilities that I recommend. For the Legionary, and honestly most classes, I recommend taking Cleanse. It allows you to remove negative effects from target, either yourself or an ally. It does not remove bleed, however, but with Legionary, we're usually stacked with so much armor, the bleed doesn't really matter that much. And then for Legionary, you can really go shield or heal. Those are my 2 recommendations. I opted for the shield in this case. And then looping back around to the ultimate ability, Unstoppable, we reviewed what it does before. I'll show you how to use it in a farming context. So what I'll typically do as far as the ultimate goes, I'll actually hold on to it until the very end of the fight. So now that I've got most of the enemies low on health, I'll go ahead and pop my ultimate. This will allow me to tank more damage so I can stay in the fight. And I can still use my regular combos, and any enemy we kill while the ultimate is active is going to heal us up at the end of the fight. So we don't have to worry about eating food or consuming a bunch of resources right after the fight. So that's going to do it for the Legionary overview. Again, this is more of a new player guide to the Legionary to get you guys started in leveling. I'll have build guides coming in the future where we'll talk more about the talent and the mastery trees. If this video did help you out, remember to leave a like. If you have any questions, drop them down in the comments. Subscribe for more Corepunk content. Stop on by the live stream, twitch.tv/McGillagrod. Check out the Discord in the description below. We're always happy to help anybody out who's new to the game. But regardless of any of that, I really appreciate you guys stopping by today, and I hope you have a cool, Rooney rest of your day, and I will catch you guys on the next one. Peace.